Yeah. Hi. Matthew German from Blue Dot. My background is in molecular infectious disease. I did some work on a tuberculosis outbreak in the Arctic for a while. I worked for our public health, our local sort of provincial public health organization for a period of time, and I've been at Blue Dot for about 5 years now. I'm currently director of product innovation, so I'm leading sort of how we translate the science that we create at Blue Dot through whether it's academic publications or partnerships into the technologies that we build to serve governments or businesses or different organizations around the world. I've generally over the last number of years been really interested in how we can take sort of the research methods, the marketing methods, the sort of data science methods, et cetera, business methods in general, and really repurpose them for social good. At Blue Dot in particular, we're a lot about sort of purpose over mechanics. So ultimately speaking, how can we use all of these various methodologies that we've either come across through our personal lives, professional lives, and other, to solve a social problem? And so from my perspective, I really think it's that. It's taking a look at sort of what the outcomes are of the work that we are doing over necessarily the specific analytics, the specific sort of methods or the specific approaches that we take. I think there are a couple of answers to that question. So one is how we use it, and the second is should we use it. So a really great example of that is in terms of when we use it. We use AI for natural language processing. We use a whole bunch of different tools that help us filter information. And we're working on one project now that helps us try and determine whether or not a single case of a disease in a particular location is going to turn into 10 cases or 10,000 or 100,000 cases. The challenge in public health in particular is the volume of data that exists. Traditionally, public health, it's not really designed or wasn't intended to collect data in a way that could be used at scale with machine learning approaches. And the other side of that is that, particularly for public health, they really need to understand how the data are being used. So how are the data collected? How are they transformed during these particular approaches? And so for the general risk assessment, for the general analytics that we're doing, we tend to rely more heavily on more traditional epidemiological approaches rather than newer machine learning approaches. So how does that manifest? The AI helps us build tools that can really operate at scale. So over the course of seconds, do hundreds of thousands of different calculations, pull tons of data into a reasonably structured format. But in terms of how we might use an epidemiological approach, a really great example of that is when we were working with Public Health Agency of Canada to assess whether or not the force of infection, so the number of individuals who are arriving in Canada with Zika virus is more associated with the seasonal travel patterns that we might see. So lots of people, for example, going to the Caribbean over the course of Christmas or the New Year, or if it was more correlated or aligned with the actual infectious burden within the host country, so within Brazil, within the Americas, et cetera. So I come from sort of an academic background where the work that we were doing was funded by governments, and it took me a pretty long time to kind of break out of that very specific framing, I suppose, where I didn't understand that business was a mechanism rather than a set of values, and so it took me probably a couple of years to really learn and understand that business was a way to scale ideas. It was a way to scale solutions to different problems in a way that government funding really can't. And so, government funding tends to be tied to political ideas, political decisions. It's tied to fiscal years. And even governments themselves tend to not be able to make really long-term plans in terms of capital expenditures or investing in different engineering solutions, et cetera. And so, a business is a way to sort of break free from some of those ties, to be able to invest in sort of more risky decisions or invest in longer-term projects. And so the idea of data for good only having a single recipient, I think, is a bit too narrow to make great use of data. And so I really think that, it's sort of purpose over mechanics. It's ensuring that the way that you do the work, that the outcomes of the work are really aligned with sort of the social good that you're trying to influence or impact. I don't know that I can do finger guns on demand, but I can do them poorly on demand.